Johnson University was founded in 1893 by Ashley and Emma Johnson. Created as a school to train and equip evangelists, the Johnsons were devoted to take in any young man who desired to preach the gospel of Christ. Since that time, the Johnsons' original vision has stayed in place, as the campus itself has evolved and changed. The Johnsons' vision in 1893 was the cover page, and chapter after chapter has been added through the years. Everyone who has since graced Johnson's halls, students, faculty, and staff, have all contributed to a new chapter. What is your role in the story of Johnson?
Every college and university has its own story, has its own mission, is shaped by the context and concerns and personalities of that school. But I do think Johnson is somewhat unique in the world of Christian higher education. First of all, in that it has sort of kept to its original vision, its original values, its sort of core essence, in spite of all the changes. Every school has to respond to changing contexts. A school cannot live in the past. It can't cling to the past. Nor can it abandon those core values that has shaped its history. It has to find a way to remain committed to the vision of the founder and the core values of the school and the mission of the school, while at the same time being flexible and agile and adjusting to the changing context. And I think Johnson has been able to do that. I think its commitment to biblical education, which is at the core of its curriculum, is an example of that. I think its commitment to a strong arts and sciences, liberal arts program is another good example of how it's made a unique contribution. President Weidman, of course, has articulated this with his third way approach, that in one sense we reflect many of the characteristics of a Bible college, but we've never really been a Bible college. On the other hand, we reflect many of the characteristics of a liberal arts university, but we've never really been a liberal arts school. We have been a kind of blend of the best of both of those approaches. And so I think Johnson does hold a unique place within its context of Christian higher education. But I think one of the unique things about Johnson is that it's really maintained a strong commitment to mission throughout its years, throughout its now almost 125-year history. If you go back to the early days of Ashley Johnson and Emma Johnson, they had a strong vision for preaching the gospel, and preaching meant communicating in many, many different forms. The gospel of Jesus, they had a worldwide vision, a global scope to this mission. And in spite of all kinds of changes through the decades, that mission has stayed the same. And there's been a strong commitment to that in every decade of its history, and of course reflected by the current mission statement, which ends to extend the kingdom of God among all nations. That's been a steady theme throughout the years. We talk today about a Great Commission mandate. That's the language that we use. But there's always been that sense that Christ has commanded His disciples to go into all the world, preach the gospel, make disciples, baptizing them, teaching them, the promise of His authority going with us, the promise of His presence to be with us. It's the commission of the church. It's the commission of all individual disciples. And as we at Johnson University see ourselves as a servant of Christ and a servant of the church, it's our mission too. To commit to the mission is not just the mission of the school, it's really God's mission in the world that we enter into. I had always heard of Johnson, then Johnson Bible College, when I was a high schooler. We had preachers at my home church who were Johnson graduates. Two of my sort of heroes and models, L.D. Campbell and Jeff Campbell, came from my church. They were Johnson people. So I'd always known about Johnson. And then when I, as a freshman in college, decided that I wanted to go into ministry. I wanted to preach. It was just natural. I knew about Johnson. That was the place where you go. And so because of what I had seen in other people who had benefited from Johnson's education, it became the place where I wanted to do my education as well. And then that began the journey from student then to professor and now into administrative work here. Well, I first came to the campus here in Kimberlin Heights. I can't remember if it was the end of my freshman year or the end of my sophomore year. I'm going to have to do the dates on that. But our minister brought a youth group here. At that time, the dairy barn was here where this building, the Phillips Welshram building, so the first thing you sort of ran into were cows. And my first reaction is, I would never want to come to a cow college. And so I sort of dismissed thinking about Johnson until I became convinced that God was calling me into a vocational kind of a ministry. And then I visited the school, had a wonderful experience here with Visit, and then decided to come. As a student, I was not a very serious student. I did a lot of majoring in social life my first year or so here. But the atmosphere here, the professors in the classes, the chapel services and speakers, it really taught me from the beginning a seriousness about life and a seriousness about my commitment to Christ that I really had not experienced. And out of that, my commitment to Christ grew, my vision for what I could do in the work of the kingdom grew. And so I credit Johnson in many ways with sort of shaping my calling, giving meaning and content to what was just kind of a vague calling from God. So following my graduation from Johnson, I was in ministry for about 6 years, and then had always in the back of my mind had wanted to go into education. I wanted to be a professor, and so I began my journey first of all at Emmanuel School of Religion, then at the University of Tennessee, and then my last year at the University of Tennessee began teaching part-time here at Johnson, and really reconnected with people and with the mission of the school. And so I was in the classroom as a professor for about 22 years, then became the Dean of the School of Arts and Sciences, then Provost, Vice President for Academics, and then will become the President next year. It's been a really interesting journey, and I would have to say that it's the community and the relationships that I built here on this campus that's helped guide me and sustain me through that. Well, as I transition to the office of president next year, on one hand, there is a tremendous sense of responsibility that I feel. I mean, I have so much appreciation for the school itself, for the presidents of this school, for the faculty, the alumni, the students. I just have such a great sense of love for the school that it carries with it a great sense. It's not a burden, but it's a strong sense of responsibility. In one sense, I don't want to mess this up. And so I feel very strongly that I need to make sure that I'm committed to the mission. And that's what I said in my acceptance speech, that there are many who love Johnson as much as I do, but no one who loves Johnson anymore. And I'm strongly committed to the Great Commission mandate, to the sort of third way approach to the mission. And I see my primary job as keeping the university on track with that mission. I remind our faculty often now that we have got to commit ourselves to this mission, fulfill this mission in very tangible ways. And so I feel a sense of responsibility on one hand, but also a sense of excitement and optimism to be able to have a part in continuing to shape the direction that this university is going to take. Would Emma and Ashley Johnson be proud of Johnson's story today? That's an interesting question that I've actually been thinking about. I've been working on the silver anniversary edition of the history of Johnson University, and I just finished several of my edits in the chapter on Ashley Johnson and the chapter that includes the material on Emma Johnson. And I thought, well, you know, what if Ashley and Emma walked the campus today? What would they think? I think they would be absolutely thrilled. I think they would, first of all, just to see the physical campus and the beautiful buildings and the wonderful landscaping and just the beauty of this campus. I think they would be amazed at that. I think they would be thrilled with the creativity and the innovation of the campus. Ashley Johnson was an entrepreneur. He was always thinking about the future and what technologies and what opportunities are there. And I think that he would just kind of say wow to our media labs and computer labs and all of the innovative programs that we have developed. Now, I'm sure they would be a bit taken back by the band in the chapel services or the fashion of our students, but I think when it comes to the campus, the mission, the faculty, the programs, I would like to think that Ashley and Emma would say to those who have come after them, well done, well done. And I hope that is the case.